I'm gonna say straight off the bat that I feel vindicated.
You don't say.
Elaborate. So first of all, Joker 2019. Yeah, it's a good movie. There are things about it that I like, but I was kind of in the minority where I didn't really embrace it the way people did. I love Batman, I'm a Batman fan, and I don't like the liberties that they took when it comes to telling a Batman story.
Fair.
The Joker is the clown prince of crime. He is a criminal mastermind. And I've always said, there is no way that that fucking retard...
Why you gotta make me feel bad? Ends up becoming the Joker we know and love.
And I was right. I just kept saying from the very beginning, this is not Joker.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell that this weirdo becomes the Joker. Absolutely not.
And it took the last frame of this movie to vindicate you.
Yeah, pretty much.
You just wanted to make fun of me.
You know, we've seen a lot of bad movies since we started this channel.
That's why the channel exists, pretty much.
Yeah. Usually when the movie ends, we're like all over it. This was the first time a movie ended, and I think I was speechless for like 2 minutes. Like I just didn't know what to say.
This guy just sat there. I was talking to him, and he was just like short-circuiting.
I was glitching. I was like, what the fuck did we just watch? Let's start with the fact that this movie was completely pointless.
Not only is it pointless, there are multiple layers of pointlessness to this movie.
It tries to one-up its pointlessness as it goes on.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, the very end of the movie, the thing that I was vindicated by, also renders both of these movies fucking absolutely useless and pointless.
Yep.
No reason for them to exist at this point.
Yeah. Now, the first film is like a really well-done deconstruction of this DC villain, whatever you feel about his origin story, whatever.
Sure.
But they did a good job like breaking this character down, building him up so he becomes the Joker at the end, fully embraces it, like everything that comes with that. This movie starts, he's just fucking Arthur again, he's a pussy again.
There was zero character progression from the first one.
Yeah, he regressed.
The first one is about a guy basically coming to terms with himself, accepting who he is. He becomes the Joker at the end.
Yeah.
This one, nope. He's just the same old pussy Arthur Fleck.
Yeah, so he's been in jail for what, like 2 years now?
Yeah.
He's just back to his old self. Okay, and then we get this really prolonged prison sequence where we just see his daily life.
Either the guards or the inmates in Arkham make Arthur kiss a guy, and so he kisses a guy, and you hear some guy off screen say, "Oh man, there was zero hesitation."
He didn't even hesitate.
He didn't even hesitate. Like, I laughed so fucking hard.
Sounds gay.
He's awaiting his trial now. He's working with a lawyer, planning his defense. They're trying to build it like, oh, the Joker was just like this alternate personality that came out in response to basically how he's been treated his whole life. From being a kid, being abused, all the way up to people pushing his buttons as an adult, and then he just finally snapped. Alternate personality comes out. That's the defense they're going with. And they spend like so much time in this prison. And then he meets Lee. So she's like in the minimum security wing of Arkham. She's part of this singing group. So they have this little first meet cute where they see each other. And Brendan Gleeson, who's fantastic, he's a guard in the film, he sets it up where Arthur can go join this like singing group in the minimum security wing. He gets out of the maximum security wing himself, so he gets something out of it. They meet up and you get to learn about like her past and everything. And Gaga's fine in the role. Like, I wasn't expecting much from her, but like, yeah, she's decent.
Her and her lip filler, they were okay.
Yeah, you know, they did well.
Let's give the people what they want.
They realize like I don't even know, like, how would you explain their connection?
Well, are we talking about the actual connection or the connection that she's trying to present? Because she ends up just being like a groupie whore, basically.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just can't. You're like a whore.
Well, okay, if you want to like take it back to the comics, basically that's what she is. She's just a simp to Mr. J.
Yeah.
She's just like, she'll do anything for him. She's obsessed with him. She's basically a stalker.
Right.
Right? And they kind of paint her like that when they introduce her. You find out that she checked herself in there just to meet him, and she's like obsessed with him. She's seen the TV movie that they made about his life like 30 times or whatever. Dude, how dare they keep talking about this TV movie and then not show us a clip from it? Like, I wanted to see what they would have done in this TV movie to portray him. Like, what kind of like...
I wanted to see the Brother Sweet Brother TV movie trailer from Cable Guy.
Exactly.
I love you. You have always been such a crying baby. Look who's crying now.
Eric Roberts is Sam and Stan Sweet in Brother, Sweet Brother.
That would have been great. That would have been a little levity in there because this movie takes itself so fucking seriously.
Why so serious?
I cannot stress how fucking grim and depressing this movie is.
Yeah. So they kind of paint her that way in the beginning, and he's kind of enamored by it because he's like, oh, a chick likes me. Oh my God. It's such a slow burn.
It's a slow burn, and the time duration is expanded because of these useless
these
musical numbers.
Interludes.
Yeah, so as some of you may know, I fucking absolutely despise musicals. I hate them. And for the most part, when I watch a musical, it feels like the story pauses so there could be this fucking song and dance number. And I know there's a lot of people that say, well, good musicals, like the songs actually progress the story. I don't care. I never feel like that. I'm like, fuck off, stop. I just want to hear dialogue. Shut up. But this movie is exactly why I despise musicals, because it does just that. They're doing a scene and then they pause the drama, they pause the story so they could have a fucking song in there.
Yeah.
And these aren't songs that are written specifically for this film.
No, they're just singing like real songs.
These are shitty covers.
Yeah.
Sung by Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix. To her credit, obviously, Lady Gaga, she's a great singer, great musician, she's good in it. And Joaquin Phoenix, you know, he learned to sing and dance doing Walk the Line, and so some of that comes into this.
That's true, yeah.
But he's not as good as she is.
No.
Fine.
When they're singing next to each other, you can obviously tell like she's the singer. But he does fine.
In terms of just technically how they do the musical numbers, they're fine. But fuck the musical numbers.
So he starts hanging out with her now in this music group, and she's like, you know what? Let's get out of here. And then she like lights the building on fire very easily, by the way. They like go to escape, but then they get caught. He gets thrown in solitary, and that's when like she comes in and she's like, oh yeah, they just let me out because you're a bad influence on me. And it's like, that already sounded fishy because it's like, well, that's not how that works. They just wouldn't let you see each other.
And his dumbass believes her.
Of course, yeah, he's a fucking idiot.
I'm a fucking idiot.
So then he bangs her, he nuts in like 8 seconds.
He's also a fucking horrible leg.
Shocker, right? So he's just like getting ready for the trial now. And then he goes and does an interview. This was like the first scene that I really liked because the interviewer played by,
Steve Coogan?
Steve Coogan, I think. Yeah, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts pushing Arthur's buttons. And he starts to pull the Joker out of him. And that becomes like a tense scene. It starts off kind of funny and he's just being Arthur and he's meek.
Yeah.
But then he starts getting serious and like...
Well, it's like we're supposed to be watching a movie about a psychopath.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's none of that. And then finally in this scene, oh shit.
Yeah, he starts to get a little psychotic and scary. The scene's going along and you're like, oh yeah, this is good. Like, here we go. We're finally getting into it. And then he starts fucking singing. And then this is one of those instances where he actually does sing the song.
Right.
Because everyone's like, is this fucker singing on like, and they just film it. And it just kind of like tanks the scene. And then we move into now the second half of the film, which is the trial. And this is where like it does start to pick up in terms of things actually happening now.
Because that whole prison sequence, nothing fucking happens.
Nothing.
It's so boring.
It's just a rehash of the first movie.
Well, even the stuff in the trial was that. They just keep bringing things
the
up.
whole thing, it's like watching an episode of a TV show, like one of those filler episodes.
Yes.
Where they're just like, oh yeah, remember that time we did this? And then they cut to a flashback for 10 minutes from an old episode and you're like, fuck, we've seen this.
Yeah.
And then they cut back to
the
the
future. They didn't have the budget for that particular episode, so they're just filling it in.
Yeah, it's just a filler episode. That's what this whole movie felt like. They go to the trial, they rehash all the shit he did from the first movie, the people he killed, the victims from the first film, and then they bring in, what was his name? Puddles. That was a good scene.
It was
because he gets up there and he starts putting on like the Joker persona, and he's
with this weird
southern accent,
southern lawyer accent.
Yeah. It reminded me of My Cousin Vinny a little.
Yeah.
Identical.
So he gets up there and, he's hounding Puddles. And then Puddles has a good moment where he's like, because he's the guy who he let live in the first film. And he's like, yo, you were the only guy who who didn't make fun of me or whatever. And then you see like Arthur come out. And it's like, they're just deconstructing him back to Arthur.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole trial ends up being. You think he's going to go full Joker again, what he did in the first film.
You get what you fucking deserve!
It's like the same fucking arc he's going to have in this film. And then he just completely regresses and goes back to Arthur in the closing statement at the trial. Right before this, though, when he decides that, he's going to be Arthur again, that's when Lee decides she's going to abandon him now because he's not Joker anymore.
Lee breaks up with him because her groupie days are over.
She only simps for Mr. J.
Exactly.
She just leaves the courtroom.
He does his closing statement, and then the jury finds him guilty.
No shit.
As this is going on, boom! fucking explosion happens. There was a car bomb that went off, blew a hole in the courtroom.
He manages to escape.
Then you're kind of thinking, oh, okay.
Where's this gonna go now?
So this is how he gets out of prison and like starts his whole crime empire.
I guess so.
Arthur Fleck, this fucking weirdo. He's already got this like army of people following him, so that's like his...
Yeah, all the people he like created in the first film.
So that's like his henchmen now, you know, or whatever.
They were kind of building it like that. He's got all these like clowns who are like helping him escape, and then like he gets picked up by a few clowns. They're driving him out of there, and he's just like still reeling from the explosion, and then they stop, and he's just like, he gets out of the car and just like runs away. He's running away from everything that they turned him into in the first film.
He ends up running ultimately to the infamous steps where he does his dumb dance from the first one. When he gets there, Harley Quinn's sitting there.
Of course, she knew he was going to come there.
Exactly.
Right. She knew he escaped and he was on his way.
So
I figured she set the car bomb.
Yeah, exactly, which would have made sense.
Yeah.
But he goes up there to talk to her, and she basically just tells him, fuck off, you're not famous anymore. I have no more use for you, basically.
I only get wet for Mr. J.
The vet gets him wet.
Exactly.
And you're not Mr. J, you're Arthur. So run along, bitch.
Bitches leave.
Which just shatters his world. And then the cops pull up.
They pull up at the exact moment she walks away. It's like perfect timing. Yes. It's like she was like waiting for them. My signal is when I walk away, that's when you pull up. And that's what happens. And he ends up back in prison, and you're like, what the where are we going?
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a couple minutes left in this movie, and Arthur gets a visitor. Yeah, and he gets taken to a hallway. There's a guy who's been like in the background the whole movie who's kind of had this like psychotic looking smile on his face.
I thought it was like some gay dude that wanted to butt fuck him.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. So he comes walking up to him, and he's like, Arthur, let me tell you a joke. And now, of course, there's no one else around, and it's like, just get the shiv out. What, like, why are we prolonging this? You know what's gonna happen.
Right.
And of course, he tells him this joke, and then he shivs the fuck out of Arthur.
And then he starts laughing manically.
He starts laughing manically in the background, and as Arthur's dying, he starts fucking cutting his mouth, like, because this is the defining feature of the Joker now, ever since Heath Ledger.
I guess you find out that Arthur Fleck just wasn't the Joker all along.
I guess, maybe.
And
it's not explicitly said,
and
but...
this other guy who was clearly psychotic.
Laughing maniacally, and now he just decided to give himself some fucking scars, and he decided he's going to take the mantle of Joker now.
And I thought my jokes were bad.
So let's think this through. Let's say that this guy actually does become the Joker. Wouldn't that kind of be a tarnish on his origin, that he's like kind of a copycat? You're just like ripping off that, you know, like...
Right, after they took such care with the character in the first film, building that character up.
I am fully convinced that during the making of the first Joker, he was, in their minds, their version of Joker.
Right.
His name's Arthur Fleck, but the Joker doesn't really have a real name. But they do something in the first Joker where he grew up in the foster care system or something. I can't remember exactly.
So there's like some ambiguity.
So you can say, oh, he actually doesn't have a name. Like they do set up some things that if this were to be the Joker that we all know, it would easily slide into that.
Right.
Except for the fact that he's a fucking idiot and not a genius whatsoever.
This movie comes along and then just takes a steaming dump on the first film. Not even just as a shitty follow-up, but it literally destroys the character from the first film.
No, it literally tells you, hey, this 2.5 hours that you just watched and the first film,
pointless.
They're pointless.
Because he's not really Joker.
It's not really him. So a lot of what the first film, especially, and this one wants to have, like the deeper discussions. It wants to talk about, mental
society, and
society,
mental illness,
all
that's
these
all
things.
there in the first one.
They're using Arthur Fleck as a character for you to sympathize with. Of course, he's a psycho, and it's upsetting to see where he goes to. But like what the first one does successfully is like at least you understand where he's coming from. They spent 2 movies trying to like have you care about this person who has these mental illness problems, but they can't even dignify this character by letting him be the real Joker at the end.
Yeah, they're just like, no, you're just gonna get shivved in this hallway and just die a sad sack.
Yeah,
while someone else becomes the Joker, and it's like, what's the point then? Why did we just watch this dude for 2 movies?
It's like Todd Phillips is perhaps the biggest filmmaker troll of all time.
I'm sorry, but you have the most beautiful feet.
That's what these 2 movies are. It's just like a big troll, a big fuck you to people that are fans of the character and fans of the comic books.
I guess. Well, fuck you, Todd Phillips.
You want to rank it?
Yeah. So what they did with this fucking character and this story, big deductions. I went 3.5 out of 10. I went low, man. Fuck this movie.
Dude, I thought you were going to give it a little bit higher. I too went 3.5 out of 10.
Get what you fucking deserve!
On the other scale, the rainbow scale?
I don't know, man. Like,
I was trying to think back to shit about the first film, and everything like the first film was accused of, him starting this movement with all these just angry white males kind of shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the justification for like incels, basically.
Yeah,
it was-
even though like I never got that from
I
the
think
first film.
that's more what the media was trying to spin with it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I don't even necessarily think that's where they were going with it. Well, what it was is the movie came out and fans liked it.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
media
yeah.
had to
Take a dump on it.
take a shit on the
yeah,
fans.
whatever for whatever reason.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I feel like this film almost acknowledged that criticism, and then we're like, well, we don't want to do that again. So we have to have Arthur turn his back on those people.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's more like, oh, well, the critics and everyone was saying this about this first film.
Yeah.
But little do you guys know, we feel the same way. Fuck Arthur Fleck and all the fans of the first movie.
Right. That was what I was trying to put my finger on, like, while we were talking about this. Like, it's almost like they had this like successful film, but because of like people complaining about that shit, they were like, well, we don't want to do that again in this one. Let's run away from it. And that's kind of what they did. And in the process of that, they destroyed the character.
I think with like a lot of these IPs nowadays, you have all these filmmakers coming in and they have to deconstruct things.
Yeah.
Because heavens if you make something that the fans like.
Can't do that again.
Exactly. That is going to dictate the score somewhat. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, it definitely ticked it up a little for me.
There's no like DI bullshit.
No,
in it,
no,
really.
no. There's nothing like that.
It's not necessarily like what's in the film itself. It's just because of how they responded to the first film.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about that shit. I went 2 out of 5.
Yeah, same here.
Well, do not recommend
Fuck no.
this one. If you
Fuck
like
no.
the first Joker, which I think most people do.
This is just going to piss you off.
Yep.